Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Konrad.
Hello.
That's him. Well, Konrad, how's your week been this week?
I'm going to ask, I've been thinking about this since before we started recording. I'm going to ask you to rephrase that question as, how have you been for the purposes of a joke?
How have you been?
Ich bin do, Anthony. Ich bin bloody do. That wasn't worth it. I apologise to everyone listening at home. It was not worth it. But I thought about that, no word of a lie, probably about 3 days ago, and I wrote it down in my notes. The first thing in my notes.
Hoping that I would just say, how are you?
Yeah, I was hoping you would just say, how have you been, without me needing to prompt you. But unfortunately, we've had to engineer that slightly. But we'll let the listeners decide. Yeah,
well, all I'll say is you've now experienced the moment that all the Ich bin do's have been building to.
Oh, is that the last Ich bin do? I feel like we're on a roll.
I'm not saying it's the
here.
last Ich bin do, but for me, this was like the third big proper Ich bin do. So
yeah.
it made me this is the one that made me be like, oh, okay, Ich bin do's a thing.
Yeah, this was a biggie. This was the possibly the zenith of the Ich bin do mountain.
Yeah, and obviously everyone knows we're talking about the Adam reveal.
Yeah.
We can sort of jump this to the front of the queue.
Yeah. It's going to be a short episode this week. We're just going to go straight to that.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, I was moonwalking around my room, just celebrating when that came in, when that chicken came home to roost.
That's amazing. I tell you, I'm maybe preempting a question that's been given to us for the questions episode this Saturday, but I am so glad I don't have to keep that a secret anymore.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm really surprised it came in as early as it did, to be honest. I thought that was going to be one of those ones on my theory matrix that just lingered for years, but here we are.
No, this show doesn't keep you hanging. Come on, you've got a man who's covered in scars. They're like, all right, we're going to have to show him who this guy is.
Yeah, suspiciously conceal his neck as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so guys, make sure you subscribe on podcasting apps if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure you give this video a like if you haven't already. I don't think there's any other plugs I have to do. Oh yes, if you want to donate to the show, there's a tip jar in the description. Anything you donate to the show will go back into the show, like these lovely microphones we have. So
yes.
The next thing we need is a webcam so we can get Konrad's ugly mug in the question and answer videos.
Yeah, you will regret that.
Yeah, we will regret that. He's just said he's been growing his hair out, so...
Yeah, like my brilliantly drawn image for your channel is already out of date, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. So you should have a little bit longer hair. We should have drawn you with loads of tattoos.
Yes,
just holding your arm up with all the tattoos in the picture.
Yeah, you haven't got all the spiders on my cheek either.
Yeah,
I don't have that tattoo.
There's this fella I used to go to school with me. I didn't see him for 5 years, and then I saw him, and he's got tattooed all across his cheek. No pain, no gain.
Oh, nice. I'm that guy feels like he's made some early career choices that he may regret.
Yeah. He's also not the type to be watching Dark, so we're safe. He's not going to hear this.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. Okay. Right. I think we'll just get straight into it then. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
So the episode opens with a field of wheat.
Sure. Or
straw,
corn. I couldn't tell
corn.
the difference.
Yeah, something.
I think it is wheat. I think you're right.
Yeah, so Jonas wakes up, he seems to have traveled to this year. And it's actually, we find out it's the year 1921. So he travels to this year. He meets a couple of farmers. He walks into town with them. They get him to a woman called Erna.
Yep.
And Erna, I'm not saying too much about anything really, because at this point in the show, I'm afraid of giving away anything. But basically, they assume he's like a prisoner of war from the First World War.
Yeah, which I was slightly confused by that. Maybe it's possible, but were POWs still returning home in 1921? That seems like a long
they
time.
weren't, because he's from the future.
Yes, that's true. Oh, I'd forgotten. Yeah, no. It seems unlikely that prisoners of war would be coming back in 1921. But I don't know how late. How
But
long,
they might not have been. But that's all they assumed that he could be. You know.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, is it not just possible he's a drunk from 2 towns over who fell asleep in a field?
Yeah, and I don't know, got his neck slit by something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is possible. It is possible, but
This beginning felt like a Paul Thomas Anderson film to me, with all the corn and the reedy violin in the score. It was I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was just like a brighter kind of image than we're used to seeing in
it was
Dark.
very There Will Be Blood, definitely.
Yeah, very, very There Will Be Blood specifically was the movie I was thinking about. But the opening image of the wheat field with the score behind it really stood out to me.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you have to say about the actual goings on in this?
Well,
okay.
There's quite a lot to say. So, first off, I mean, a lot of this is just kind of questions which don't really have answers. But who's Erna? She seems important. The fact that there's a cutaway to what looks an awful lot like a child's coffin seems important. I don't know whose that could potentially be, but it seems like it's someone who will perhaps be notable.
I will say that now, I'm not saying in any respect whether people still believe this, but at the time when season 2 came out, there was a lot of people thinking that the man who got killed by young Noah at the start of the season, that was his funeral. I just want to say, I don't think that's the case, because that was like 5 months before this. I think that was January 21.
I don't think that. I did think that briefly as well, but the size of the coffin doesn't look right. That looks like a child's coffin to me. And as you say, it was a long time ago that death. So unless his body's just been sitting in a tub of pickles or something for the last 6 months. Yeah. It was how he wanted to go.
Yeah, it's a pickled man. Yeah.
But yeah, so young Agnes is kind of terrifying, and this sort of puts a bullet in my Agnes's Martha theory. Because
you'd have to go to the future and back.
Yeah, unless she goes on a sort of like a secondary school trip to the 2020s, and then I don't really see how that works. I mean, it's possible, I guess, but that theory is kind of clinging on by its fingernails at the moment. But I love
she would have to be like an undercover op, going as Martha, because she was Agnes before, and then Martha, then Agnes again.
Yeah, and Martha doesn't seem like the undercover cop type. Or maybe that's exactly what makes her so good at it. Who knows? But yeah, so I really like the sort of slow reveal throughout this episode, and in this scene of the travelers and their meeting place, and this kind of pullback and reveal from it's a friendly group of people who are just looking to help him, to people talking about all kinds of weird stuff. So Erna being like, get the chamber ready for him, which is like, what the hell is the chamber? That sounds like a weird thing to call something when it appears to just be a room. I'm interested to see what that.
Yeah, I think that personally, I think that is a translation error.
Oh, okay, right.
Because in French it's chambre.
Yeah.
So maybe they just thought, it's olden days. Let's call the bedroom the chamber.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a hyperbolic time chamber, like that.
It might be.
Okay. Well, I'm clinging on to that. I'm hoping out for that. But the acting from Jonas is great here as well. The way the actor kind of sells his trauma when he's eating his stew or soup or whatever it is, and he's kind of shaking. Really makes him seem very vulnerable. But yeah, this is a great opening scene. Really, really sets the table for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you think about where he ended up in the town, sort of thing? Like, what was your understanding of he walked through the portal? Like, did he end up in the same spot that he went through the portal in, or did he transfer?
Yeah, I assume that Wheatfield. I mean, that looked very similar to the area we've seen Burnt delivering his speeches in the 50s. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of the wheat has been removed, for the purposes of actually building the plant. But I'm assuming he travelled to the exact spot he was standing in 2052.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And out of curiosity, when I first watched this, every time we go through time, I'm looking at everyone, I'm wondering who they are. The two farmers. Any idea?
I didn't think about that at all, to be honest. I'm gonna throw out two names. I'm not gonna say they're Nilssons. I'm gonna say
They might not, but they might be no one. So I don't want to like make you put a theory in the Matrix, just to lose one. But I'm just saying that when I watched it, everyone to me was like a potential character that I had seen before or would come important.
It's a good point. I mean, they don't tend to give lines away flippantly. Like, people who talk tend to seem to tend to come back as at least relatively major characters. But I didn't think too much about them, to be honest. I guess like the fact they took him to where they took him implies that they are also members of Sigmundus, or are at least aware of Sigmundus and kind of what they do. So it stands to reason they would be fairly important. But I haven't really thought about who they could potentially be.
Okay, cool. Right, okay, so after this opening scene, which was quite actually a long opening scene for Dark, and then we get the opening credits. Immediately after the opening credits, we get told there's 3 days until the apocalypse.
Yep.
And
it's getting closer.
Yep, and the episode title this time is The Travelers.
Yep. So I will admit, my luck continues with these titles. I want to be honest with our listeners. I would never lie to you, listeners. I did cheat a bit on this title because in the previous episode, H.G. Tannhaus describes the stranger as Zeitreisender, so time traveler, presumably, like translates literally to that. And then people could not stop saying Die Reisender in this episode. So I had a lot of help from our friends in Vinden to figure this one out. But if I'm being honest with myself, if I'd had come into this completely blind, I know that like Ikfara, I think, is to travel, or I think that might be to drive. So sight unseen, I think I probably would have said something like Die Fahren or something for the travelers.
The driver.
The driver, yeah.
Jason Statham in Die Fahren.
Yeah.
I probably would have went for nothing because I don't know German. But Google Translate says, and I'm using Google Translate, everyone. Tell me off in the comments. It really boosts the popularity of the video. No, but I do know this one is correct as well because, that huge egg on the face if it's wrong. But again, it's one of those words that I did pick up from the show. Like, there's a few different words and phrases that I picked up just from watching the show because they say it so much. So Die Reisenden is definitely one of the ones I did. So, and I think it's just so cool the way they say it too.
They say it a lot.
Yeah, it sounds way more like sort of cool and interesting and ominous than The Travelers in English to me. Yeah,
there's a sort of punchiness to this phrase that doesn't exist in the English one.
Yeah, exactly. Right, okay, so then we get the sex dream again, but this time Marta is the one having it.
Yeah, interesting that. As if she kind of subconsciously also knows that something is wrong about it, but can't kind of put her finger on it.
Yes, exactly. But out of curiosity, they both had the same dream. So what do you think?
Yeah, I wonder if this is more kind of symbolism and metaphor than anything that's literally supposed to be explored. Because I don't really, the show hasn't really got into the idea of, kind of like mimetic legacy and like sharing things that would allow us to dream, sharing knowledge, or not even sharing knowledge, sharing like kind of biological links that would allow us to dream the same thing. Yeah. I think it's mainly just there to show that Marta also suspects that something is wrong with their relationship. Mm-hmm. Like how, to go back to the Vincest segment from last week, the choice audio clip that you used, where his mum kisses him. Yeah, exactly. And she knows that something about kissing him is wrong, even though there's no reason why she would know that. And I suspect this is the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Right. Okay. So then we get police station scene.
Clausen and Voller buddy cup episode coming hot and heavy in this one. Yeah,
it's great. So basically, Charlotte's sick, apparently. We know she's not because we see her later. But I loved how Clausen turned to Torben and says, "We're in for some fun. We're in for a fun time."
Oh, I loved this. I was so happy to see like Clausen and Voller just getting thrown in together to, go and do whatever it is that Clausen feels like doing that day while Voller drives him around and looks incredibly uncomfortable. I've never seen a man look more unhappy than Voller, to be honest. Like he looks like he's about to cry in every scene that he's in.
And this will say as well, whoever the police sketch artist is for Vinden Police Station, they need a raise.
Oh yeah, they're great. They are probably like an amateur artist who had dreams of going pro, but just it never really happened for them, and so they had to just make ends meet by selling out.
It reminded me. I know you haven't seen Making a Murderer, but it reminded me in the first episode of Making a Murderer. Basically, Stephen Avery gets convicted of a rape that he didn't commit, and basically he they actually took a picture of him, a headshot of him, and like traced the picture, so it looks exactly the same. And when you lay it over the top, it looks the exact same, right?
Yeah.
But the funniest thing about it was the guy who did it was like this police officer who had never done a police sketch in his life before, and he never did one again.
Oh, but going out while you're on top.
Yeah, his name was Gene Couché, and they started calling him Gene the Pencil Couché.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know, if you're going to be known for something, be known for your limited in quantity but exceptional in quality artwork in the police station. Yeah,
exactly. Right, okay. So Charlotte then is in the HG Townhouse's shop, the clock shop, and she's looking through all the stuff. There's a whole load of interesting stuff here you could probably unpack, but I'm just going to point out one thing. She finds the time machine blueprint.
Yep. Yeah, that seemed important.
Yeah, and then I think at the end of the scene, Hannah calls her. Yeah, and so anything else you noticed in this scene, or?
No, just that really. The schematic was obviously a focal point for the camera, which means it's probably a focal point for us. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. I can't imagine. I'd love to see them. Yeah, I'd love to see Peter Doppler having a crack at building a time machine. He'd end up with egg on his face, but it would be hilarious. But yeah, I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Also, in this episode, there's a load of short, snappy scenes. So later on, I've tried to amalgamate some of them together. So you'll see what I'm doing with that later. But this was a short one. Okay, then we get a very ripped Jonas, stranger Jonas.
Yeah, he's drinking milk in a mug here, which was very upsetting to me. You don't have milk in a mug. Come on, stranger.
What, unless you put a little bit of cocoa in there or something?
Well, I mean, yeah. So if you're going to have it in a mug, it needs to be hot and it needs to be served with some kind of cocoa. If you're having milk cold, it's in a glass. Come on.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's not the done thing,
especially
not in someone else's house.
Yeah, either a glass or a quick few swigs out the bottle from the fridge.
Oh, not in. I mean, he's still if you'll excuse the pun, a stranger in this house, despite technically being related to Hannah. So he can't just drink out of the bottle. I mean, to be honest, it was pretty rude that he just helped himself to her milk anyway.
This is his house.
Well, I mean, sort of.
Yeah, well, it's according to Hannah, he's only been gone for like 9 months or something.
I mean, listen, if I walked into my parents' house tonight and just started helping myself to everything in the fridge, my mum would get cross with me. And I haven't been gone for 30 years or however long Stranger Jonas has been gone for.
Okay, I'm trying to think whether my mum would actually get annoyed at me. I don't think she would. My
mum gets annoyed at me if I do anything in the house, to be honest. Like, she has the fridge in a certain way, and if I touch it, it's ruined forever.
Yeah, well, like the fact that you're not allowed to go inside houses now, it's because of COVID. Your mum's like, yes!
Yeah, finally, the kids that can't come back.
Yeah. All right, so he also then finds a gun.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting because I don't know if you remember, I wanted to speak to you about this. I suggested that maybe him walking in on Hannah, thinking about killing herself, was deliberate, but this makes it look like it was purely by chance.
Yeah, I think it was by chance.
Yeah, which it's convenient.
That's one of those times where I started like talking about it as if you would have known it was by chance, and then you said, "No, I don't think it was by chance. I think he knew." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be quiet now."
Yeah, I just I figured he knew, and that's why he walked in at that exact moment, because it would be quite convenient for him to walk in at that exact moment without knowing. But it's only a little thing, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So he also asks who is that when he looks at the passport. It's actually Boris or Alexander or Yasin, either one. So I thought to myself it was funny. Like he's like, oh, who's that? Oh, what's this gun? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I imagine if she just like explained, oh, I'm just trying to blackmail Ulrich Nielsen to get his life destroyed, but then he just disappeared. So I don't know what's going on. You know?
Yeah. I kind of set this ball rolling, and now I don't know what I'm doing with it. Like, is the actual answer? But yeah,
So now I just sit around and hold the gun. Sometimes.
Yeah, I just like to keep a hold of it, cradle it.
Yeah, keep it clean. Okay, so then we get the Nielsen household, and Magnus and Marta are there. Franziska and Ellie come in. Anything you were going to say? You going to say something there?
I just love this kind of Lost Boys kind of group that's forming here, who've like all these kids have been kind of abandoned by their parents, who themselves are sort of consumed with the time travel stuff, especially when they're all likely to arrive at the exact same conclusion, which is a really nice irony. But yeah, this gang of four, I'll say this now, we're getting very close to my children policing time prediction, listeners. Someone does end up bound in this episode. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yes, actually, that's true. Yeah, so that's a good point about this, like sort of the Lost Boys sort of feel to this. What did you think about the idea that like Magnus and Franziska were like, okay, our storyline is finished, let's get on with it now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in this episode. I was kind of a little bit dumbfounded by how much this episode is kind of moving the pieces around to get people ready to be involved in the time travel stuff. So Magnus and Franziska are a great example, but also Katerina as well. They're just like, right, you've had your plot now, and now you're into the time travel, and it's just kind of getting everyone ready for the sort of run into the second half of the season, which I really liked. There's a real kind of snappy sense of brevity to everything that goes on with these characters.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, at this point, like, you know, shit's getting serious now. So we need the pieces in place. You know, it's like little petty squabbles aren't important anymore. As much as they were important to develop the characters at this point, you know. I also like the idea of Franziska just realizing, okay, he thought I was a prostitute. I'm not a prostitute. Let's
let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, like she sat on it for a few days and she realized, yeah, I can see why he thought that.
Yeah. I was behaving kind of strangely. Let's move on. And I respect her for, you know, being grown up enough to, you know, offer the olive branch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then they go to... also, I thought it was really interesting, the idea... Now, I don't know if you picked up on this parallel, but the idea of Ellie can't stay at home because there's no one to mind her. So that's a real parallel with episode 1 of season 1, when Mikkel couldn't stay at home.
Oh, I didn't think about that, actually. But yeah, that is an interesting parallel. And also compounds that idea of these kids kind of being abandoned by their parents, basically.
Yeah, and I'm glad you didn't think of that, because the whole episode, the first time I watched this, I did think of that, and the whole episode, I just thought Ellie was going to get taken.
Oh, okay. No, I like... If Ellie is who I think she is, I wouldn't want to try and take her, because she would mess me up.
Yeah.
Like, that little girl knows some jiu-jitsu, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, Regina's got her fencing. Elizabeth has her jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're formidable people, formidable women in Vinden. You don't want to mess with them.
Exactly. Right, okay, so then we get Jonas in 21 and young Noah. They're chatting away in the chamber.
Yeah, I love the... you slept for 24 hours, insert stinger here line, just to immediately let you know who you're talking to, and then the cut to the knife. And young Noah in this entire episode, but I think obviously starting in this scene where we first see him, he seems a lot more menacing and sure of himself than he did in the opening scene of episode 1. And I feel like his character is really starting to turn into the man that we saw in season 1, who has like that absolute conviction in what he's doing. So it's a really interesting character development for young Noah in this episode. I did also like the framed Sigmundus poster. I feel like someone in this group put it up in the hospital in the 80s as a joke, perhaps, because it's just kind of like it just turns up in weird places.
The Emerald Tablet. Well, it's always about whenever people are sort of healing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's true.
So basically, they put the 24-hour line in there, because the idea is Jonas should have traveled immediately, but every episode is a different day. So they're showing us that before the credits of this episode, that was actually the previous day.
Yeah, so he was just asleep, which makes sense. You know, he seemed very tired, and I can't imagine he was sleeping that well in 2052, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Also, whenever Noah in season 1 talked about someone coming to visit after the war or something like that, and they stood in the corridor and said something, and it did the very deliberate cut away to Jonas.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to actually explicitly see that, or do you think this is just alluding to that this was the time that would have happened?
I'm not sure, because he's not really covered in scars here, and that's one of the things that Noah says, that they were visited by a man who was covered in scars. I mean, he has some scars. Obviously, you know, he's got the wound on his leg, he's got the wound on his neck. He's seen some action, so I suppose it could be. But in my head, it was someone closer to Stranger Jonas's age who visited them.
Okay, cool. Right, okay, so next, Claudia is in 2020, and she is going up and asking at the gates if herself is there. She's told that, no, the only Tiedemann about is Alexander Tiedemann, which really confuses her.
Yeah, fair enough, really.
Yeah, fair enough. It was probably a pretty good thing to do, to go and ask for herself, just to double-check that whether she should go back or not, because at this point she's a bit blind, really.
Yeah. Everything that Claudia does in this episode, while being quite funny in places, is incredibly smart. I do want to know what hairspray she uses, because the hold she has maintained in her hair through several trips through time is frankly astounding at this point. I don't know how she does it.
Maybe it's Claudia.
But yeah. I'm trying
Claudia.
It could be, because she's worth it. Her being surprised by Alexander being in charge, I think we all are, to be honest. Now that we know what we know about Alexander, given he knows literally nothing. Well, I say that he knows nothing about nuclear physics. I assume he knows nothing about nuclear physics, given he turned up with the police chasing him and a bullet hole in his shoulder. I wonder if we'll see more of that to explain how he does end up in charge.
He was performing underground nuclear fission. That's why he was running.
Yes, secret black market nuclear physicist stuff that the police rumbled him for.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of him, he's being interviewed by Clausen, and the idea of his name being Alexander Tiedemann is actually sort of a theme throughout this episode as well, because Clausen is really interested about that. And Clausen, before he questions him about his last name, he actually starts questioning him about Mads, because he realizes that Alexander came to Vinden in sort of around the same time. Alexander very sort of nonchalant. He's just like, a few weeks later. What's that? What are you about?
He kind of like. I feel like it's quite pointed that he distances himself from it. But yeah, like there's the line of questioning here it's quite typical of Clausen's character, I think, where he kind of feels like he's a bit all over the place, and I think it's because he's trying to catch the person that he's interrogating off guard with a question out of left field, which is very smart writing.
Yeah, exactly. So he's so scattershot that when he eventually starts asking about his last name, I think we sort of all can realize that maybe that's what he's focusing on. But to Alexander, it's just another random question. Yeah,
absolutely. And Clausen gets some really good dialogue in this scene. I think I love the symbolism when he's talking about no one ever leaving Vinden, and Alexander suggests it's because of the power plant, which is both literally and kind of figuratively true. Obviously, it keeps people there because of the jobs it offers, but it also keeps people there because they're stuck in a bloody time loop. And then on the other side of that, this idea that once the plant closes, people will finally, quote unquote, leave. But some of those people might be quite desperate to get it back, as in by restoring the timeline. There's just a lovely dual meaning to Clausen's dialogue in this scene.
Yeah, and then maybe they'll eventually elect someone who puts tariffs on China to try and bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. That'll work.
Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so then we get... so Hannah, we saw that she was ringing Charlotte earlier, and now Charlotte does show up and sort of is introduced to Stranger. But Charlotte recognizes straight away that this is actually the man that Regina saw in the hotel.
Yeah, I don't... Oh, there was a drawing. Was there a drawing of him? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the drawing, yeah.
Oh, that's right, because they got the drawing from Regina to describe him, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I was trying to figure out how she actually recognized him, but that makes sense.
Yeah, and So she then takes the photo out and says, "Who are these people?" He says, "Sigmundus, the Travelers."
Yeah, De Reisenden. And I feel like everyone, the next few scenes is just getting, like, we're getting the gang together. Like, everyone is getting filled in, and we're getting people ready for some gosh darn time travel.
Yeah, exactly. So the gang is now at the Lost Boys, as you deem them, you name them. They are now at the caves. And they're gonna
kids policing time, here we go.
Yeah, they're going to be going through the caves. I'm going to leave what they do in the caves till a bit later.
Yeah.
What did you think about the fact that they were just going straight into the caves? I will point out that they were very smart. They actually have flashlights. Many other characters don't bring flashlights.
Yeah, looking at you, Ulrich. Yeah, they I suppose they know that Mikkel disappeared when they all heard a spooky noise from the caves. And they've seen Ulrich's notes, and that Katerina has also been looking at. And I think they have mentioned that they know Katerina is kind of going through the caves as well.
Uh-huh.
So to me, it makes sense that that's where they'd check. And I just love, like, the imagery as well of them kind of going through the caves while the adults are literally just above their heads going through the exact same stuff. And it really kind of hammers home this idea that, like, if people in this town would just bloody talk to each other about what they're actually doing, things would get solved so much quicker. But obviously the secrets and the sense that you can only trust the people around you, and maybe not even them, continues to be a major factor in Vinden's fortunes.
Yep, unfortunately. So then we get the scene where, as I'm sure some of the funny lines you were talking about, like Claudia going into the library and all.
Yeah, 80s person doesn't understand modern technology scene, which is always a classic for a bit of comedy.
Yeah. Where's the keyboard? There isn't one.
Yeah.
Oh,
she just
geez.
looks awkwardly at the screen.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that fantastic advice.
I love I do love the design of this library. I should say there's a couple of buildings in this episode whose interiors are really striking, and the library, I don't even know if it's meant to be striking really. It looks like it's probably a functioning library, but it looks great to me.
Yeah, it's probably a library at a university, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically Claudia goes in. She goes onto the computer. She sort of looks up a few things. Claudia Tiedemann, this is your life. And she looks up that she was all the different things about herself. First woman to be in charge of the power plant. She disappears. She also looks up Regina got married to Alexander Tiedemann, which obviously answers that little question for her. But also we find out that her father is going to be found dead in his apartment.
Yep, on the 26th of June. So in episode 6, presumably, if we're sticking to the one episode per day structure, and the fact that she wants to print something, to me, makes me think that she wants to show it to someone. So I wonder if she's planning to go back. Well, we know that by the end of this episode that she's going back to the 80s, but I wonder if she's planning to go back to the 80s and potentially show it to Egon. And I wonder if she'll get maybe waylaid, which will stop her from saving him. Just because the found dead in his apartment doesn't feel like a cancer death to me. Like, he doesn't seem like he's going to be dead in 3 days.
I think when you're dying of cancer, anyone I've ever known that has been dying of cancer is in too much pain not to just call the doctor. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't die of cancer without doctors there or being in a hospital or. Yeah, so
I have got a theory in the theory matrix, which I'll mention now, which is that based on this, I don't think it's going to be the cancer that kills Egon.
Interesting.
And maybe there's going to be some foul play involved.
Okay. You want to elaborate, or are you just going to keep it vague?
Well, I mean, I don't really know what the foul play would be, to be honest. So it's easier if I keep it vague and make it sound like I have an idea. But I don't even know who would have something out for Egon, really. I hope it's not Noah. That would break my heart if Noah just or someone like that, one of the Sigmundus guys, just shows up and is like, "You're getting too close, Egon." And all he can say in response is like, "But what do the Satanist lyrics mean?" And so he doesn't know anything. Leave him be.
Well, at the risk of completely putting you off this scent, Ulrich has something out for him, I would say.
He does. Ulrich is the one who could potentially do it. I don't know. I feel like Ulrich's murdering days are behind him now. Maybe maybe I'm speaking too soon on that, but if Egon is the one who seems most likely to have it out for Egon, as you say.
Yeah. Okay. So do you expect you don't think that she's going to take the newspaper back and then save his life and then it's going to disappear and change Back to the Future style?
I would love it if it did. I would absolutely love it. I don't think it's going to. I think. I don't think Egon's making it out of this season alive, unfortunately. I think whatever Claudia plans to do with that printout is not going to go the way she wants it to. I'm not sure why, but I wonder, actually, thinking about it, if I were writing this show, you could do some really tragic scene where she shows it to him and he has a heart attack from the shock of it or something like that, and it's not necessarily foul play, it's just because she's the one who actually causes him to die, and then she needs to run back off to the 2020s or the 50s to escape potential police investigation. But that's kind of just me plucking a theory out of the air without really thinking too much about it. Yeah,
exactly. Also, I also mentioned there is a little bit of parallel here to episode 3. When Claudia old Claudia actually dies, it's sort of foretold by characters having a newspaper article of her body being found.
So, that's true.
And this is her father. It sort of seems to be the same thing happening to him as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, it is. There's definitely a parallel there. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then we get the body cop scene of Clausen and Torben in the car.
Yeah, I love Clausen's monologue where he's talking about everyone lying and betraying each other and all the dishonesty and the bad things they're up to, and then he just turns to Voller and is like, "So, what about you?" It's he couldn't be more obvious that he's interviewing him. Or actually, that might be in a next. I think that might be in a scene further on. But
we can do them both at the same time. I don't mind.
That bit just made me laugh. I think, so I think from the first one, in this first scene, we get the Voller asking him about volunteering for the special task force.
Yeah.
And Clausen responds with a very kind of, it's almost like Machiavellian. It's oh yes, I did.
I did.
Yeah, he might have an ulterior motive here, I think. There's a couple of sort of moustache twirling moments in this episode, and this was definitely one of them for me.
Yeah, he very much throws a little bit of the whodunit inspector out sometimes.
There's a theatrical element to him, but I don't think he's just kind of. I wonder if he is actually trying to solve the murders or if he's trying to solve something else as well at the same time. It seems like there's more to him than just someone who's here to figure out the murders.
Okay. Also, I love that Torben was talking about Hannah Kahnwald, and he was saying oh, very good looking, very good looking. No one understood why she went with Michael.
Yeah. No, and then, he sort of drops Ulrich in here as well by just immediately mentioning he knows about the affair, which everyone apparently knows about. So
well, definitely they would have known about at the police station, because remember there was one time she actually showed up.
Oh yeah, that's true. And cornered Ulrich in an evidence locker.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it well.
So we'll touch upon that second scene later on, because there's quite a bit in that as well. Okay,
yeah,
so.
That sounds cool.
So now they're down into the bunker. Hannah's in the bunker with Peter and with Charlotte, just from doing this podcast, I find Peter huge, way more funny than I did before we started doing this podcast.
Oh yeah, he's I've really come around on Peter as a character, because he's just he's so out of his depth.
Yeah. I know, I agree with you. But basically, Hannah sees that Ulrich is in the paper from the 50s, 53, I think. And Claudia's got a drawing there. And then Hannah, actually, I thought, Hannah has a lot of critics. Me, one of them, to be honest, as well. I am a critic of Hannah's character, because she does some pretty bad stuff in this show.
Yeah.
But you have to admit, that's pretty good of her straight away to say, we have to tell Katerina.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. I think from a character perspective, she doesn't there's not really any reason for her to want to help Katerina. So I think this does show there is some goodness in Hannah and some genuine sort of empathy for the people in her life that aren't related to her. The thing that I found really interesting about this, though, is that when she mentions Katerina, it appears like the only people whose graves we see in 2052 are the ones who, by the end of this episode, aren't involved in the time travel plot, with the exception of Clausen, I guess. Especially if my theory that Martha isn't actually dead comes to fruition. So I wonder whether we have seen a cast of... We've established kind of a subset of the cast in this episode who are going to survive the apocalypse by maybe going somewhere else.
Okay. I think... So that is... Have you actually got a theory down? Remember you said that the Doppler family and Magnus were going to go into the bunker?
Yeah. So I think it's kind of a continuation of that, but obviously Hannah and Katerina... Like Hannah and the stranger...
This group
and,
sort of thing, yeah.
And Katerina, and then also Marta have become, and Ellie as well, have become involved in it as well. So I don't know exactly where they're going to go. Maybe it'll all be in the bunker, but I just noticed that there was that the people who we are seeing get involved in the time travel plot are the only ones we haven't seen graves for, which kind of made me, like, strengthened my belief that they're all going to survive the apocalypse.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know that and by involved in time travel, you're including like Magnus and Francisco and stuff, because they're they're talking to Bartos about the machine now. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're like the group of 4 kids and the group of 4 adults, 5 I guess, including the stranger, feel like they are in the time travel plot now, and they will at least play relatively significant parts going forward. I hope they do, because I want to see more of these characters.
Awesome. Okay, so next scene we get Jonas going into the caves in 21. What did you think about the design of the cave? You know, the caves are always different. What do you think about the design of the cave in 21?
Yeah, so it looks like a kind of semi-functional mine shaft, which I really liked. It looks like people are working on it.
They're digging the tunnel, aren't they?
Yeah, but it doesn't look like a proper mine shaft. It looks like a mine shaft that's being built or like maintained by maybe 3 or 4 people, as opposed to a massive company, which certainly fits in with what we've seen of Sic Mundus as a fairly small, if powerful, group. The scene with Jonas in the caves, I don't know if you want to get into it now, but the way it ends is it has one of my favourite shots in the entire show so far. The
sort of backlit him at the end of the passage.
Yeah, exactly. So that sort of final desperate image of Jonas with his sort of hand pressed against the wall, sort of his back heaving, and he's just surrounded by darkness as the camera pulls away from him, leaving him in silence. And it's just this sort of moment where it's like, oh boy, someone's going to have to come save Jonas, and it gets the mind racing as to how he's going to get back to his correct time.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So there was also a little scene interspersed in the middle of that of Marta, as they were going through the caves, Marta saying to the rest of the teenagers that sometimes she dreams of Jonas, and I think Francisca talks to Marta about that, and I think they even analyze the dream like you did at the start.
Yeah. Like they kind of, they definitely read into it. I'm sorry, I've got a motorbike going past my window. I apologise, listeners. It's become like a feature of this podcast now to just have a traffic update from my flat at various points.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out to whoever can predict the model of car for next week's episode.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like the sort of interspersed editing between the bunker and the caves in 2020 and the caves in 21. It's really snappy, and it makes it like basically keeps you guessing as to what's going to happen next. And the 2020 scene is particularly good. I think that's probably my favorite of the 3, because it gives us so much about these characters. So Ellie being there when, like, if she turns out to be who I think she is, which I think is pretty clear at this point, the woman in the future, then the idea about the sort of cult around the passage into the caves in 2052 is starting to make a bit more sense, because obviously she's seen it firsthand. Something maybe you can clear up for me. So she feels the ground shaking, which seemed to imply to me that Bartos, when he turns up, was coming through the passage rather than using the machine.
No, I think the machine does make the ground shake as well.
Oh, okay.
At a certain diameter. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, fine. Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was implying the passage had reopened and we just didn't know about it or not. Yeah, and then them tying Bartos up. I did mention handcuffs. Admittedly, I said gravity handcuffs in my kids policing time theory, which these are. Well, actually, we don't know exactly what they bound him with, so it could, in theory, be gravity handcuffs.
Yeah, he's not getting up off the ground.
That's true. Yeah, I love this. There was so much catharsis in them just beating up Bartos for a bit, and I basically in this scene, I will admit this now. My Ellie isn't deaf mute theory took a bit of a pounding when they showed they showed things from her perspective and everyone's voice was like muted. It kind of proves that maybe she is actually deaf mute. So
when you made that theory, I thought that was going to go the whole way to the end of the third season.
I thought it was as well.
I forgot about that moment.
No. The fun is over. We can't keep having fun anymore because Ellie's ruined it. So nice going, Baron Barodar. So that theory's out the window. The fact they kind of beat Bartos up, that is, and then steal the time machine, is a nice moment of catharsis. And I wonder if it's going to be them who come and save Jonas. I don't know how that would work, but I feel like someone's going to have to come save him because he can't get back himself.
But also, like, you think about it, right? Noah gave him that time machine.
Yeah.
And Noah has the book which tells him what happens in time.
Yes, that's a great point. He probably was laughing to himself as he gave him the machine, like, you idiot, Bartos. I just love, like...
Go and spend a day in the 50s, Bartos.
Yeah, have a day to yourself. Idiot.
Yeah.
I like the scene for the sort of banner moment in the series where we can mark it down in our diary. This is the first time Bartos has done anything helpful for anyone else in the entire series, and it's him getting beaten up and losing the time machine he just took from his dead grandmother. So nice going, Bartos, you idiot. But yeah, I love this scene.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so Katerina is taken by Charlotte now into the bunker, but before they get there, there's a really intense, well-acted, just lovely scene in the car.
Yeah, Katerina's great in that scene.
Yeah. She's just at the end of her tether. And I like at the end, she just sort of accepts, okay, I'll wait for the information. Because once you give her a grain saying that they're alive, sort of it gets her there. And they get down into the bunker, and then she doesn't take it seriously at all.
Yeah, and she kind of... One of the things I really like about Katerina as a character and like about the woman who plays her is that she finds this ability within the character to be incredibly sympathetic in one scene, like the one in the car with Charlotte, and then in the final scene of this kind of mini arc, if you like, where she goes to check the school records. But then she can also switch to being kind of a bully and still feel very believable.
Like her 80s self.
Yeah, exactly. But she also, I feel like when she's actually in the bunker and she's kind of laughing and just incredulous and making fun of the stranger and mocking Hannah, or mocking all of them really. She has a bit of that bully about her as well.
Yeah.
And she's such a well realized character, and I think the actress does such a phenomenal job with her.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's absolutely amazing. What did you think about the moment where Jonas says? Because Katerina started sort of insinuating that Jonas was like Hannah's new toy boy.
Oh, yeah, her boy toy, yeah.
Yeah, and Jonas is like, oh, I'm her son and your grandson.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's the first real moment where anyone has said, oh, this is the actual impact this has had upon all of our family trees to anyone else. I don't think Jonas might have mentioned...
when he was Jonas was like screaming at Enos, remember? In episode 10 of season 1.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Jonas has talked about it, his aunt. Yeah. So this is the second one of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a landmark moment, I think, to use that phrase again. I think it changes everything about Hannah and Katerina's relationship. It changes everything about Jonas and Katerina's relationship. I don't know if they'll see each other again, but I'm fascinated to see how all these characters come to terms with what this means for the people around them.
Yeah, and there's a part of the scene which I don't know if you picked up on, but it's a very small line, but it says a lot. It's like you can talk for 5 minutes about one line alone, and it's whenever Katerina says to Jonas, you know, like, are you getting paid for this? You know, what do you want, money? And then she said, do you speak to the dead? Right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really great, because it's like, it's almost, she was like accusing him of being like a clairvoyant, you know, like a psychic who was just
like
coming
a
along.
charlatan.
Yeah, charlatan who's seen the news that Jonas is missing, and he's come along and said, "Hi, I'm Jonas," and made up this whole story about time travel just to get money from them. And like Katarina just throws that whole idea that could be a whole show in itself out with one little line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I think that's completely what she's suggesting, and it's fantastic. And obviously, you know, there's multiple layers to that, because he kind of does speak to the dead, or you know, they don't necessarily. Oh no, actually, Michael has spoken back to Jonas, so yeah, he does speak to the dead. So you know, it's there's some truth behind what she's mocking him for. But as you say, yeah, she just throws it out. As this just this ridiculous idea.
Yeah, it's like hang on. But it's even more ridiculous what's actually true.
Yeah.
So basically, Clausen now and Torben are in the car again, and sort of talking through the case again.
Yeah.
And then Clausen asks Torben, "What happened to your eye?"
Oh my god, we're never gonna find out. I am like 90% certain we're never finding out about the eye at this point, but I am 100% certain that it's embarrassing, and I'm sticking with my he was attacked by a bird theory until it's proven otherwise.
Attacked by a bird. Yeah, and but the reason why they don't get to finish that story is because Claudia steps in front of the car.
Yeah, she needs to learn the Green Cross code, which for those of you not born in the UK means she needs to look both ways before she crosses the road, because she just wanders out.
Yeah, wanders out, and then what's Clausen says something like, "That's interesting." So.
Yeah, interessant, which taught me that the word for interesting in German is the same as it is in French, which I did not know.
Oh yeah, interesting.
I figured I thought he was just being, you know how when someone's a real dick in English, they'll sometimes throw in a bit of French to make them sound really cultured.
Yeah.
And I thought he might be doing the same thing, just, you know, tossing in a French word there to, you know, like he'll say like sacre bleu at some point later on in the series as well.
Yeah. Did you look it up? Is it actually a German word, or is he just
And interessant is it's probably pronounced slightly differently, but it seems like that's how you say interesting in both French and German. So
that's interesting.
He wasn't being as sort of theatrical as I initially expected him to be.
Yeah, because like earlier in the series, like they did have Benny saying "ciao," so
yeah, exactly. Yeah, although I mean, I imagine in parts of southern Germany that are closer to Italy and Austria, you might have people saying "ciao." I think that's a word that translates. That's purely guessing. I apologise to any of our listeners from southern Germany who have been insulted by the implication that they speak Italian there.
Yeah, no, but I also think that just in general, people say "ciao." Like
that is true. Yeah,
even English people would say "ciao." Or,
I'll say "ciao" all the time.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Yeah, like a Cornwall accent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on to the scene where you mentioned earlier on, where Katarina goes into the school, into the records, and looks up the pictures. Class pictures.
She just, I love. Again, not to harp on about it, but the way that she just kind of collapses inwards on herself when she can no longer refuse to believe what's being presented in front of her is so brilliant and quite touching here. Even though Katarina's a character who's hard to love, but I definitely felt for her in this scene.
Yeah, and there's another wedding ring on the right hand. So just to let you know, those people in the comments who told us that that's the German way weren't lying.
Yep, I've learned my lesson.
Yep, exactly. Although she's not wearing an engagement ring, which is interesting, because usually, in my experience, usually women wear both their engagement ring and their wedding ring in our neck of the woods anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if that's... I don't know if... I assume engagement rings are a thing in most countries and cultures, but I don't know for certain. Maybe Ulrich was just the type to not buy an engagement ring, and because he was like, "Oh, I'll buy it for you later," and then like 30 years on, it's a sore spot in the marriage.
No, he popped out to get the engagement ring like he did the bread in season 1, but he went over to Hannah's house.
Yeah, went for a run to get an engagement ring and ended up stopping at the carnivals.
Having said that, he did come back with the bread, so never know. Okay, so then Jonas is coming out of the cave, and then Noah's, he loves, you know what? That is his apple-eating stump. No matter what time you're in.
Yeah, that rock. Don't get him started on how much he likes that rock. He will absolutely talk your ear off about the times he sat on that rock eating apples.
Yeah.
He barely touched that apple. That was such a waste. I was really angry with him.
Yeah, he was just planting apple trees. Oh my God, can you imagine if there was an apple tree in that?
We need to check. Someone check the tapes.
That would be.
Is there an apple tree in 20? Well, there won't be in 2052. We know that for certain. But it would just be a cocoon riddled horror stump. But maybe in 2020 there's a small apple tree there.
And if there's not, they should CG it in and then just like replace the episode on Netflix.
Yeah, that's the dumb thing now. We just nothing's ever finished. We have to keep changing things.
They actually did change something in this.
Oh, did they?
Just so you know. So now we saw the calendar in the post-apocalyptic world in episode 1 in the Konrad house. Well, there's a certain time we see that again later in the series when it's, I don't know, it's a montage or whatever. But they didn't have the same markings on the calendar, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, what does it mean?" And then but now if you go in and watch it again, now it actually is the same. So,
that's great.
So they've actually went in and digitally, like, you know, put an extra X or whatever it was, you know.
You can imagine them like looking at each other when that theory comes out and being like, "Oh balls, we need to fix this."
Ring up Netflix and goes, "We got an idea. Like, roll with us here. We'll change it." Right. Okay. So then, Jonas is then. Well, we get another bunker scene basically, and Jonas is talking about Adam and sort of why they ask him why he's here basically, like, why have you come to this time? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And he said Adam said there's a loophole. And he has to try and stop the final cycle.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get into it now because it's going to be bloody wordy and probably very boring. So listeners be warned. Just stop listening probably about 10 minutes before the end of this podcast if you don't want to hear me go on about the last cycle. But the loophole in the last cycle beginning in 3 days. I've got some ideas about this. The loophole I have no idea about, actually, to be clear. The last cycle, I have some thoughts. But okay. I'm not sure what the loophole is. But then again, it was Adam telling him, and based on what we know by the end of this episode, can we trust Adam to tell the truth?
I do not know.
And as an aside, based on I'm going to keep repeating this until it becomes a thing, #TrustClaudia stance, the Claudia tried but became what she wanted to fight is such brilliant foreshadowing for the Adam reveal later in this episode, because I don't think she did, Jonas. Or Jonas, rather. I think someone else might have.
Yeah. How funny would it have been, right, at the end of this episode? I know we're not there yet, but at the end of this episode, instead of saying Ich bin du...
Ich bin Claudia.
No. Instead of saying ich bin du, Adam just started going, "My name is Jonas."
Yeah, he brings out an acoustic guitar and like does some lovely finger picking.
Yeah,
that's a Weezer reference for anyone not born in the 80s.
Yeah, the one of the only songs I've got 100% on expert on Ultimate. What is it? Ultimate Guitar? No, Guitar Hero. Yeah, Guitar Hero. One of the only songs I got 100% on expert. So
that's a difficult song to play.
Just so you know. So Claudia then appears, and we know it's actually confirmed later on in the montage. She's back in the 80s. Did you see this coming? Yeah,
she's gone back to the future, sort of.
Depending on where you are in time.
Well, I saw her going back to the 80s. To be honest, I thought that her getting waylaid, or the thing that would stop her from saving Egon, which I presume is what she's doing with the newspaper clipping, would be the fact that she couldn't get back in time because back in time. There you go. I've got my Back to the Future reference in. Would be that I don't know, like something would happen to the time machine, or she'd get stuck, and that would waylay her. So I was quite surprised to see her just turn back up in the 80s. I still think something's gonna come between her and telling Egon, but I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, and she's like, sort of, if you really think about it, right? In the first, like every film or TV show where you have like a strange world you're going into, so it would be time travel and dark, you need to have a character who isn't familiar to that world, and you are you go with that character. So in the first season, that was obviously Jonas for us. In the second season, they've got the same character again, basically, but it's Claudia now. So she's actually our experience of this world.
Our sort of fish out of water.
Yeah, and it's a bit more nuanced than that as well, because we are sort of we're sort of also continuing on Jonas's path, where we sort of do know a little bit what's going on, but not too much. So we're sort of both Claudia as well as young Jonas as well still. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of the film noir to Noah, that's a Freudian slip, to Jonas and Claudia's story, in that for the most part we're finding things out as one of them finds things out as well. So there's always that kind of sense of an unfolding mystery and always that tension around these big reveals. And my sense is that it's going to become more about Claudia than about Jonas now, given we know the beginning, middle, and end of Jonas's story by the end of this episode. Whereas I suppose actually we know the beginning, middle, and end of Claudia's as well.
We know the literal end of Claudia's.
Yeah. But my suspicion is that older Claudia intends for middle Claudia to do things differently. So she's kind of making her own path. But that could easily be wrong. But there's definitely there is definitely a sense of the sort of film noir about these characters.
Yeah, awesome. So then we get, before we head into the montage, we get a short scene between Noah and Jonas.
Yeah.
And I'm talking old Noah here.
Yeah.
And
they're both there.
They are both there, actually, yeah. And older Noah is saying, like, bet you didn't expect to see me here. And, I
love the you've already made my acquaintance, with the nod to young Noah, which is such a villain thing to say. Like, this is the other moustache twirl line where it's just like, oh, Noah.
Yeah, where's the camera? It looks straight in it.
Yeah, little wink for the camera. Yeah, he's great in this scene. And just as an aside, I love the design of this church. Like, it's I know we've seen it before, but for some reason it really stood out to me this time. The sort of the red walls and the almost black pews, they give it this real sense of evil. Like, this is a sort of almost like a church to Satan rather than a church that one would pray to God in. And
there's a real darkness to it.
There is, yeah. It doesn't feel like a good place. Let's put it that way. You don't tend to have blood red walls and black chairs in somewhere where you're going to read from some psalms and sing some hymns.
Yeah. Also, did Noah always have the little cross on his lapel?
I think he did. I've definitely noticed it before. I can't say for certain that he has always had it, but I've definitely noticed it previously. Okay. He's a snappy dresser. Maybe he just occasionally decides on the lapel crucifix, and some days he feels like it's time. It's a more conservative dress day.
The lapel cross, not crucifix.
Oh, is there a difference?
As far as I'm aware, being raised Catholic, not really. I wouldn't consider myself much of a Catholic these days, but the crucifix has Jesus on it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I might be completely. Anyone who wants to correct me on that, go right ahead. But that was my understanding as a Irish Catholic boy.
I went to a Church of England primary school, and I'm sure somewhere one of my teachers has just sat bolt upright in a cold sweat, realizing how bad a job they did on my education.
Well, they probably didn't know either, to be honest with you.
No, maybe they taught me wrong. Let's just blame them.
And you know what? Maybe I was just corrected by an older relative who had no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah, that's how it all. That's how all of this works. It's just a spread of misinformation through familial links. Exactly. The only other thing I was going to say about this scene before we moved on was I found it interesting that there's a distinction between the sort of wider Sigmundus cult and the Travellers specifically. So young Noah says that he hasn't become a Traveller yet, but he will. So presumably that means the Travellers are people who have actually gone through time. That seems like the most logical kind of distinction between them.
Okay, gotcha. So because obviously we already know that Adam took him in, basically. Yeah. Meaning that he's part of Sigmundus. So and
I'm guessing cool. Like what's the woman's name in the first scene? Like Elga, was it?
Erna,
yeah. Like, so I would assume she's part of Sigmundus, but not a traveller as well, given she's tending a bar in the 20s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it seems like there are members who aren't actively going through time.
Okay, awesome. So then we get a really cool montage where there's a load of information. Bartos is in the cave. Yeah. Katarina's sad. Jonas is going into a lift, which I thought was really interesting because like Noah opened the door and was almost like, hey, look at this. And then like Jonas like looked at it and looked really surprised, and it's like literally just a lift,
Yeah.
or an elevator. So like I was, cause when I first time I watched that, I was like, oh, what's he looking at? And then they just go down in the lift, and then Ali and Francisca get home, but there's no one there, empty house. Claudia gets home and sort of wants to sort of really show her love to Regina again, it seems, because she knows where Regina's going to end up. And also, Clausen has written Alexander Kohler on the top of his board.
He has, yeah. And I feel like the Clausen stuff is kind of off to one side, but for me, the main thing I took from this was this sense that all of these characters who have now been exposed to the time travel stuff, in this montage, which has a really lovely song behind it, which is, the song choices in Dark are always great, but this one was particularly nice. All these characters are kind of coming back to their regular lives and are being confronted by a reality that they can't go back to them. So in the case of Ellie and Francisca, they're looking at the empty sofa where they would normally sit, and they can't sit there anymore. It's empty because they now have this kind of burden to continue looking into what is actually going on in Vinden. And likewise, the look that Magnus, Marta and Katarina share basically is kind of like this knowing, stressed look that things are never going to be the way they were before. And as you've said with Claudia as well, she comes back. Obviously, she still has that desire to reform a relationship with Regina, but I just don't think she can at this point. And I know I say this every time she sees her, but I wonder if this will be the last time she sees Regina.
Yeah.
Or I guess is in close contact. Yeah. If I keep saying it, eventually it'll be correct. And the Jonas taking the descent into what may very well be hell in this scene. Certainly looks a bit like it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. So after the montage, we come straight out into a scene with the older, what do you call, deaf mute woman from the future, who is heavily implied it's Elizabeth.
Yep.
What are you laughing at?
Yeah, I was just laughing at you implying that it isn't Ellie. It's like, come on.
Well, I to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure I've called her Elizabeth before. But then earlier on this episode, you're like, if she is who I think she is, as if this is some deep theory that.
I mean, yeah, the show's kind of laid that one out for us. Really, they've got that one right up to the goal line and are asking for us to tap it in. I think. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that is Ellie.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll call her Future Woman.
The theatrical secrecy is important here.
Yeah, Future Woman and Future Girl are chatting to each other here, and Future Girl wants to know, what is that thing? And Future Elizabeth says, well, we thought it was a part of God, but actually it's part of the devil.
Yeah, and it is, it feels a bit dramatic, but obviously when you're standing in Future Ellie's shoes, it would make sense to consider this a part of the devil, because things have not worked out that well for humanity. We don't know what's happened yet, but it's been heavily implied that the discovery of the God particle and the portals that it can create are responsible for what's happened to the world. I also, having a theory in my Matrix that said Ellie knows, or this woman knows, more about the God particle than they're letting on, and the fact that they know exactly where to find this girl and exactly what she is doing, to me implies that they definitely know more than they're letting on about this thing. And also there's to go back to another one of my theories, that this brunette girl is Future Ellie's daughter. There's a real sort of pain in Ellie's eyes here, at the sort of sense of betrayal, which really reinforced my feeling that they must be related. Okay,
awesome. All right, so then we get the Noah and Noah scene where they are chatting away. Young Noah's asking what's going to happen to Jonas now. And old Noah says Adam will send him on his way on the path that has already been determined, so that the last cycle can begin.
Yes, he does. So there's a lot to unpack in this scene and in the next one. So first off, young Noah is looking at the same image that Ellie was reading about in one of H.G. Tannhouse's books. So that continues to be a link that's completely unexplained between H.G. Tannhaus and the Sigmundus cult. There's also what I found particularly interesting about this. Old Noah, puts the pages he took from Claudia back in the book and has it just out, which to me seems like he might be relenting and giving the pages back to Adam after lying to him in the previous episode. I'm not 100% sure if that's right and I'm reading that correctly, but that's how that felt to me.
Well, where he is right now isn't near Adam. So
Yeah, I guess Adam isn't around, but I would have thought he'd be concerned about young Noah, or for that matter anyone else in Sigmundus, seeing that he has it and knowing that he lied to Adam.
Yeah, well, as far as we know, Adam's the only one who knows that he was looking for those pages. That's
a good point. Yeah, that's true. So maybe he's just kind of, reflecting on the pages and thinking about what he's going to do with them. I found what actually feels like a pretty big reveal to me, that Noah doesn't know who wrote the book, which implies no one knows who wrote the book, because if Noah doesn't know, who the hell does know?
Yeah.
And we'll get into this a bit more at the end of the episode, I think. But we have an Adam and we have a Noah. Stands to reason that there's an Eve and a God as well. And I wonder who the God is in Sigmundus's view.
Okay, interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing those theories. So before we get there, last one, it's the Ich bin du moment. We've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
So talk us through your feelings when you were watching this.
So the way it was shot, I think was we've talked about this before, where the show kind of wants you to cross the finish line before it gives the answer to you, I think.
Yeah.
And this is, I think it's harder to get this, because it doesn't really explicitly give you the answer, but the way it's shot as a literal mirror, there is a reflection down the middle of the room, and it goes from a kind of wide full body shot of Jonas to a wide full body shot of Adam, and they're standing very unnaturally if you actually think about how they're standing in the room, but it's done to show that there is a clear line of comparison between these two individuals, and I think it's very clearly saying this is what this person is going to become. And yeah, the Jonas saying he wants everything to end, and he has that kind of that youthful energy, that sense of desperation that he just wants everything to go back to the way it was before. Basically, he wants it to finish. And seeing that emotion mirrored in Adam, where you can see that Adam still wants the same thing, but the way he talks about it is kind of coloured by, I guess, 60, 70 years of pain and becoming jaded with the process. And so he talks about how, it's going to end, all things end, your end, my end, the end of all things. And it's this brilliant kind of contortion of Jonas's deepest desire in this series, where I absolutely believe that he could end up this way. And then, obviously the reveal of the Ich bin du, probably the most powerful Ich bin du, I think, of the series so far. Yeah, he's got a great voice too, Adam.
I really was hoping for what the Adam voice would really let me rip into the dub what the dub, but actually the dub Adam, it's nowhere near as good, but it's not. They actually did go out and cast like a really gruff sounding old man. So
okay.
Yeah.
Is the line just "I am you" in the dub?
It is just "I am you," yeah, which is not as cool. Not as
cool.
I
don't know whether this is just me being kind of like biased towards the correct or the original language version, but Ich bin du just sounds better to me. It's a lot punchier as a line.
Yeah, it is. It seems like it's more than. It seems like it's actually saying more than just "I am you."
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. Like, I think if you were going to translate it to English and have it be as punchy, you'd have to come up with some really cool line like "We are one" or something. I don't know.
Yeah. That totally. That's like, I don't think "I am you" works nearly as well. But yeah, I mean, this as a reveal, this opens up so much about where Jonas's character is going to go, or well, I guess more about where the stranger is going to go, really, because Stranger knows this as well.
Yeah, we already know. We already know one of Jonas's checkpoints along the way to becoming Adam.
Yeah,
It's the stranger.
There feels like the stranger is closer to Adam than young Jonas is. Certainly, there's a sort of bloody mindedness and a desperation in the actions that stranger is taking that young Jonas hasn't got to yet. But even so, there feels like there's a long way for stranger to go to get to actually running the Sic Mundus cult.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's one of the reasons why I think that like the Adam reveal that Adam is Jonas is not one that most people got. Like most people, or maybe they'll tell me that they did, but I think most people got the Michael reveal. I think most people eventually got the stranger reveal, but I'm not sure if most people got the Adam reveal. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. I think one of the reasons for that is that we see Adam in the first episode, and then he sort of just goes away.
Yeah,
and then we see him again at the very end of the episode 3. And then we see him at the end of this episode. So I think they very much kept Adam away because they didn't want you questioning it too much. Because let's be honest, there wasn't very many characters that he could be.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what led me to my theory on him. It was literally, well, he knows Bartos from a young age, and we've had Stranger Jonas in the episode where he's revealed talking about how he's present in all times, so that felt like a big clue.
Yeah.
And if he's known Bartos from a young age, realistically there's only 3 characters he could be, and that's either Bartos himself, Jonas, or Magnus. And Magnus I kind of immediately discounted because it doesn't feel like Magnus's character is going to have to go through some shit to get to where where Adam is now. Bartos, that was my first thought, but then I obviously landed on the guy getting killed in episode 1 looking so much like Bartos that I feel like that's him, which just left Jonas. But I think I'm obviously very pleased with myself for getting that. I was I pumped a fist in the air when I got the Ich bin du moment, or actually slightly before, when he takes the collar off, because that was one of my big things. Was like, oh, he's wearing a suspiciously high collar as if to conceal a wound. Yeah. I did pump a fist in the air, but I'm just more excited to see really where we go from here with Adam and his relationship with Jonas and Stranger and Noah specifically.
Awesome. Okay, let's get into the roundup.
Cool.
Okay, so the IMDb rating is 9.5. What do you think?
I was going back and forth on this in my head. I think this might be one of the best episodes. I think it might be. I'm kind of, on one hand, I'm very aware that there's very limited kind of character drama in this episode. Like, in many ways, this is sort of the yin to the yang of the previous episode, where episode 3 was a lot of character drama, a lot of Egon, a lot of Claudia, and it was fantastic in its own way. This really doesn't have any of that. There's a couple of good moments, like we talked about Katarina's acting, and obviously the Jonas and Noah and Adam stuff is good, but it's very limited. Like, it's this is really get the pieces in place. It's all plot movement. It's all getting stuff forward, and that's very exciting. But I think 9.5 is probably fair. I think I'm kind of trying to talk myself out of giving this a super high rating because I don't want to do a disservice to the previous episode, which was also great. It was just great in a slightly less, I guess, exciting way. But it was really good. Like, and I do feel like all the pieces are kind of in place for the run into the second half of the season now.
Yeah, and I will say, we're judging this on the bar of dark episodes. Like, 9.5 is a ridiculously high rating.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think did we agree on the last one that it was like a 9.2?
Yeah.
So we're kind of like splitting hairs about like.
Yeah,
exactly. I feel bad that it's 0.3 less than this episode, but realistically, they're both still brilliant. And I would watch. I wonder on a rewatch whether I might prefer episode 3, because I feel like that character drama will be just as good the second time.
The Claudia and Egon stuff,
yeah, the Claudia and Egon stuff will be just as impactful and touching the second time, whereas this, because so much of it is exciting to see the characters getting in position and finding stuff out, some of that might be lost on a second viewing. Like, how did you find them holding up?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like when I go back and if I'm doing a full rewatch, then I'm loving all this stuff. But if I'm going to go back and watch one episode in particular, I know what you mean. I generally will go back to episodes with more character work in them.
Yeah,
definitely. That's why season 2, episode 6 is so good.
Yeah, I can't wait to get there
because it has both.
If my prediction based on the death date we see from Egon in the newspaper of the 26th of June is correct, then that's going to happen in episode 6, and I think that's going to hit me pretty hard if that happens as I expect it to in that episode.
Interesting. All right, so what about some theories?
Okay, right. Strap yourselves in, people, or just stop listening entirely if you don't want to listen to me talk for about 15 minutes. So this cycle business, I want to talk to you about cycles, okay? and what they mean for the people of Vinden. So, okay, cycles seem important. I think we can all agree on that. Like, they've been mentioned enough that it feels important. I think we're certainly on the last cycle. Have they said they had...
cycle of life.
And it moves through Vinden. Yeah. It's funny because we were singing Lion King songs before we even started recording this. This is an in-joke that no one is a part of, but we're bringing you in.
We're gonna release a dark / Weird Al Yankovic style album.
Oh, imagine. Get Egon doing some spoken word stuff on it. He's made for it. That voice, that lovely gravelly voice.
We'll write something around like a Eminem Stan, and he can do that.
Or he could do Scar's part. Actually, he's got quite a good Scar voice.
Oh yeah, we'll just do the whole. Rewrite Dark as the Lion King.
Perfect. There we go.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, cycles. They seem important. And I think I can't actually remember if this has been confirmed, but have they said there've been 2 already? So we're going into the 3rd, which is the last.
I believe they mentioned the 3rd. I don't know whether that means directly that there's 2 before. I'd imagine it does. But I think like everything in the show is sort of 3s. Like we're seeing 3 versions of people.
I'm like 90% certain they've said this is the 3rd cycle is about to begin, like in the first episode. I haven't written it down anywhere. Okay. But so we know that I suspect there's 3. We know the next one is starting in 3 days. And we know that the Sigmundus guys believe it to be kind of a form of paradise. Or it will usher in the beginning of a kind of form of paradise that they see. So we know that there's a post-apocalyptic wasteland after the nuclear war happens, or sorry, not the nuclear war happens, whatever causes the apocalypse to happen occurs. There's like this post-apocalyptic wasteland which looks irradiated and horrible. That doesn't sound much like a paradise to me. So what is it that the Sigmundus guys are waiting around for or trying to ensure happens? And in my head, I wonder if there's an even further future which all of the Sigmundus crew will travel to, that in fact is their idea of paradise. So beyond the post-apocalyptic wasteland, there's something that they want to preserve.
Like society is reformed in some way? Maybe?
Something like that, yeah. But there's some kind of like Edenic situation where they are in charge of a good life for the people around them. So in my head, I'm thinking of cycles almost like a kind of military tour of duty in their terms. So they kind of enlist people to travel through the relevant timelines, ensuring certain actions happen during a set period of time so that the paradise at the end of it all can be maintained. And these cycles kind of line up with the seasons of the TV show, which that sounds really dumb and meta to say it. But obviously the reason it lines up with the seasons of the TV show is because it explains why we can skip 8 months between seasons, because those 8 months aren't part of a cycle because no one's doing anything to preserve a timeline. There's no time travel taking place. So in my head, that's kind of what a cycle is. Okay. And obviously they're trying to maintain something that we haven't seen yet. So that's one big theory. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. Do you want me to go into my other one?
I want you to go in the other one.
I got a couple of biggies. So
I'm hesitant to say things during these theory crafting sessions.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. It lets me go down my own rabbit hole and suggest things that are completely wrong.
Yeah. Go away. Go into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm going. I'll see you later. So this is I've kind of already hinted at this one, but this is to do with the book.
Oh, can I just say something? My head is
Yeah,
just randomly threw this out to me, right?
Yep.
Helga, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, down the rabbit hole, the cave. This is like an Alice in Wonderland reference, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. There's definitely he is Alice. He
Yeah.
just needs a blue and white dress.
No, he's the rabbit.
Oh, he is the rabbit.
So Ulrich is Alice because Ulrich followed him in.
Yeah, that's true. And Helga was late for a very important date with Yasin. It needs some work, but I think there's definitely some truth to that.
There is definitely there.
Yeah, so I've kind of mentioned this one before, but so whoever wrote that book must be from Vinden, and they must have seen the past and the future. That's what Noah says. And if, as I said previously, if there is an Adam and there is a Noah, then it does stand to reason that there is also an Eve and there is also a God. And who are they? And then also, how did Claudia steal the pages? Because she must have, like, if the book is kind of in the possession, either, I guess it could be in the possession of like Adam and Noah and those guys, but in my head the book would exist at kind of the end of time, like in the paradise that they're trying to preserve, which means that Claudia has potentially seen that, and maybe means that she is the Eve. It would certainly line up with her kind of supposed involvement with the Sic Mundus guys, given we know that she's been involved with Noah. Which then, the question then is, who is the god? And I wonder if it could be H.G. Tannhaus, because it seems like we haven't heard a thing about him beyond his influence on the sort of creation of the time machine.
Yeah, well, there's definitely that symbolism there. Like he created it, really, didn't he?
Yeah,
well, he didn't actually. It was kind of like it was a what do you call it? Paradox. So he didn't
the
really.
bootstrap paradox.
He didn't really create it, really, but he kind of did.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly important, but I feel like the fact they haven't mentioned anything about him kind of after he does his expositionary stuff to do with the time machine seems important to me, or seems like it's a bigger mission. Which makes me wonder if he's going to come back into the plot in a major way. Maybe he'll just disappear and like go retire on a tropical island somewhere. But I feel like he's coming back and maybe could be the guy who has seen the very far future and wants to preserve it.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So we're getting some real big picture theories here.
Yeah, that's what came out of this one, was less X is Y's dad and more there's a big old timeline. Oh, there's a big old stretch of time where everything's cool and they're trying to preserve it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, that was episode 4, season 2. We are halfway through season 2 now, so there's only 8 episodes, remember, so we're getting there quick.
We're flying.
We are absolutely flying. So we've only got 12 more episodes of Dark.
I know, that seems like so few. I'm sad.
Yeah. It's a bittersweet thing because like they wouldn't be able to do such a good job if they didn't restrict it. But at the same time, it's like, give me 6 seasons, But yeah, so we'll see. I'm looking forward to next episode, but I'm really looking forward to 2 episodes time. Hopefully, I'm not bigging it up too much for you, but
yeah, but we're going to come into it, and the first thing I'm going to say is this was a terrible episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Just set everyone's expectations as low as possible.
Yeah, okay. Right, guys, this week we have no What the Dub. We also have no Wincest. Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna go into the family tree implications of Jonas being Adam because I don't really see how we can do that without actually just speculating on people being other people's parents and stuff. We don't know anything at this point, so definitely I will say that in this season there will be more Wincests, but we'll just wait. We'll wait and see.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring, yeah. Well, hopefully everyone listening to this podcast knows what I'm talking about. But there's definitely more than one more reveal, so to speak. So we'll find out about that. I'm sure in the following weeks. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, that would be just great. If you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be really good too. If not, that's all right. If you want to ask if you want to ask Konrad a question, then give him underneath my pinned comment on this video, and then I'll get them. It'll be about episode 5 of season 2, and then I'll get those questions to him next week. Anything to add, Konrad, before we leave these fine fellows and ladies? I was saying fellows, and I was thinking, what's the female equivalent of fellows?
That's a worry.
So I just had to say ladies, because I was like, what is the right word for like
fellows and dames?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you've painted yourself into a corner a bit with that one, because I can't really help you. But to segue out of it desperately.
Yeah, well, I didn't say dames, you did.
That's true. I've done myself there. But no, yeah, I can't wait for the next couple of episodes. I can't wait for the end of the season, to be honest. So please come and join us.
Yeah, join us. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.